I'm annoyed with myself. I watched a documentary earlier that I'd seen Mark watching it the other day, and I said to him, "Well, don't delete that. I'll watch that at some point." And I started watching it this morning. I've watched 2/3 of it. I'm not going to watch any more. It's about the murder of Sarah Everard by Wayne Couzens, who was a serving Metropolitan Police officer. And this happened probably 2 years ago, and I was aware of it at the time. But somehow this documentary is I really found it really disturbing. And I think what happens is that when something like that is in the news, is really high profile, you're getting snippets of this and bits of that, but you're not getting the full picture. And then, of course, when somebody makes a documentary, a few years later, you're getting a much more in-depth picture of what's happened and how and what preceded it, what was going on in the years and the months and the days beforehand. I just found it incredibly disturbing, and it warns you at the beginning of the documentary that it's likely to be disturbing. It's quite graphic, all of that, and that isn't something that normally gets to me. I'm not immune to it, but I'm normally defending enough to be able to watch it and not be so and not I'm using traumatized because I can't think of another word, but I felt quite traumatized by it this morning. I felt quite tearful this afternoon. Um, just the whole horror, the whole brutalness of what can happen to a young woman who was just going about her normal business. Um, she's actually older than I realised that she was, I think, at the time. Um, but the whole brutality of it, and the thoughts of it takes over an hour to get from London to Dover, during which time what was going on for her, she was in his car. I'm not going to traumatise you with it. If you want to read up about it, you can. Um, but I just think, how can somebody be so evil? How can people be so evil, so brutal? He was doing stuff in the days beforehand that were just very typical of someone that is upping the ante and upping the ante until he murders. And they were talking about the potential that it's possible that there are crimes that he's committed that have not been discovered because he'd reached quite a level. Oh God, I'm going to yawn again. Sorry. Um, so yeah, really annoyed that I watched it because I think obviously I'll get rid of it from my head eventually. Talking about it helps. Sorry. Um, I do some writing, a bit of journaling, and I've written about it as well because I just think I need to get it out of my head. But what a horrible world we live in. And of course, there's the Israel Palestine stuff going on, also brutal, horrible stuff, which I'm not going to go any further with because it's a massive political weapon, massive, massive story, massive thing that people take sides about, and that's not something I'm going to put here, but that's brutal. Yeah, it's horrible. I think the other thing for me is that how did he was a family man. He has a wife and I think two children. And I think, what was life like that like for them? How could they blindly go along and not know about his dark side? I had a look, I did a Google, and his wife is from the Ukraine, and my my thoughts are that quite potentially when you come from a different culture and you have a different language, sometimes you miss the nuances of what's going on. So it's quite likely that she could miss what she might have noticed had she not been from another country. Possibly. I can't. I think I can't imagine living a life with someone who has a shadow side, a dark side that you are trying not to be aware of. I know from when I was working years ago with survivors of sexual abuse that um, quite often, you know, you'd hear. I read a lot, obviously, about what I was working with to help educate me on what I needed to know for the clients I was working with, and quite often parents or the mother, if it were the father that was sexually abusing, the mother would not have any knowledge of it. But there's a big school of thought that suggests that she would have known, she would have had knowledge. And I think it's probably the same in this case, is that you can't be completely blind, can you? Surely you cannot be completely blind to what your husband's doing. Surely not. I don't know. I don't know. So that's that. Really pissed off about that. Found that actually I've just watched Leave Everything and Wander, which has helped lift my mood somewhat. Obviously, it would do. It's lovely watching them and seeing them getting on with stuff. I felt they were justifying at the end why they hadn't achieved a lot, which I was really like, what the fuck? You don't have to justify. They're busy, you know. They're doing a lot of stuff. They don't have to justify. But yeah, that's lifted my mood. I do feel better than I did 2 hours ago. I was sort of thinking 2 hours ago, you know where I could vlog? I'll cry. So anyway, normal life, back to real life, back to my life, or back to Joe's life. She's picked up the dogs. Apparently, they got picked up at lunchtime. She cleaned her courtyard. Was worried about that because the tenant, had kept dogs and bred dogs. It was very doggy in the courtyard, and her courtyard is, the house goes around the it's a square. So as you walk in, you've got big glass entranceway, and then the house goes around the other three sides of the square. And the courtyard is like an interior courtyard, but it's cobbled, big bouldery cobbles, which I have to really be careful walking on. It's quite uneven, but it's an ideal mud room, boot room, dirty dog's room, you know, coming in if you've been for a walk, coming in, getting rid of all your dirty boots and everything before going into the house. It's ideal for that. But of course he had dogs, and so there's still potentially the remaining smell of the dogs. So she's tried, and her cleaners have tried to clean it, but it's not easy to clean because it's got like grouting all around the side, the cobbles, which is sort of, then you've got, is that grout, is it mud? So she's tried to clean it as far as she was able, but it's not easy to do. And then she's bought an enzyme to put down, to spray, to try and, which will neutralise the smell of other dogs. Well, apparently her younger dog has peed on the curtains in the courtyard, and it's not normally him that does that does the marking of the territory. It's normally his older brother, but apparently he's done that. I haven't seen anything since, so hopefully that will be the one time. So yeah, that's what's going on for her. What is it? Tomorrow's Monday. We have nothing planned. I've invited our oldest French friends, the people that we knew before we came, who we swapped houses with back in 2005. 2005, we swapped houses with them. And as a result of swapping houses with them for a holiday, this is how we ended up deciding, well, not just like, oh, we'll go and live in France. I mean, it was sort of, it helped decide what we were going to do. So they live 20 minutes away, and they're coming over on Sunday for goûter. So I'm going to make a cake. The cake that I'm going to make is it's chocolate, an almond brownie with bay leaves. It's a tray bake. I've made it before. I made it for them before, but it's years since I've made it, and it's years since they've been here for goûter. You know, they haven't been here for goûter since before I became ill, and I been ill for 7 years. We've been to them a couple of times, but they've not been here. So they're coming here Sunday. I'm going to make this cake. It's really nice. So that's happening then. I'm hoping. Is Vicky cleaning? I'm hoping. Yeah, Vicky's coming to clean. So the house, I mean, it's not too bad anyway, but the house will be clean. Ludo's coming to do some gardening on Thursday, I think. We're not going anywhere. Oh, we've got our COVID jabs on Wednesday. Yeah, COVID jabs on Wednesday. So that's it, really. Yeah, so that's what's happening. And now I'm going to go and sit and talk to Mark. That will please him because he's reading. He's out the front reading. It's not that warm out there. What is it? Oh, 18, but he's sitting in the sun and it'll be warmer in the sun. So I'm going to go and bother him now. Lucky him. Okay, have a nice day.